Hi there from Chicago. Happy Bagel Wednesday. Glad to have you with us here on Big Ten Today, presented by Gatorade. Mike Hall alongside Rafael Davis. Good to be with you, sir. I don't know if you know this. Gerry DiNardo, my best friend, is joining the show in a little bit.
I think he might be my uncle now. Your best friend, my uncle.
Yeah,
Can't wait to hear from him.
I ever tell you the story of how we're best friends?
Nah.
Takes 5 or 10 minutes, real quick. So I won't do that. Instead, we'll go right into the big story of the day, which is looking back at the Big Ten basketball world from yesterday. Our big story starts with Michigan. They continued to have an amazing season, just destroyed Villanova. They were up 30 at the break. Illinois beat Ohio State. Kylan Boswell only had 4 points, and it didn't matter, thanks to 3 other players scoring 17 or more. Indiana threw down 113 against Penn State. They won by 41, but the story was Lamar Wilkerson, 10 three-pointers and a career-high 44 points. And USC beat San Diego. Chad Baker-Mazara with 31, and Ezra Asar having a career-high performance as well. We'll talk about all of these games coming up in the next 10 minutes or so, but let's start off with Illinois taking down Ohio State. It was a close game. It was a good game. And if people didn't have a chance to know how good the depth of Illinois is, I think we're starting to really figure it out. Keaton Wagler was great.
I mean, Keegan Wagler has been big time the last 2 games. You look at that UConn game he had a couple weeks ago. He really struggled, only 3 points, but he picked it up against Tennessee, and then to go on the road in your Big Ten opener at Ohio State and drop 23 points, 5 assists, it's just a big time performance. It shows you how deep this Illinois squad is, because you look at Keaton Wagler, but then you also look at a David Markovic, another freshman, 22-9 on the road. They can beat you in a lot of different ways. And when those bigs, when they start making threes from perimeter, Illinois becomes almost unguardable, because what do you do if you're Christoph Tilley? Do you protect the rim, or do you close out on Tomislav Ivicic? And you saw at the end of the game, Keaton Wagler with the ball up top, at closing moments, a nice, beautiful drive, gets to that elbow. Christoph helps just a little bit. Tomislav Ivicic knocks down the big three-pointer to win the game for the Fighting Illini. This is the offensive team that we expect to see. The ball is flying around. They're taking care of it. They're rebounding at a high level, and then they're getting a little bit of bench production from Big Z, came in and knocked out some shots. Illinois is rolling.
I'm glad you brought up Ivicic. Like, statistically, he didn't have a great day. I mentioned Boswell didn't have a great day. You talked about Mirkovic and Wagler. Stojakovic added in 17. They've got depth. I see things like them going 29 of 32 from the free throw line. I'm starting to wonder, have you thought, I know we're only 4 or 5 weeks in, but have you thought of the ceiling of what Illinois can be? Like, if they are at their best come February and March, what this team could be?
I mean, I think if Illinois is at their best, they could beat anyone in the country. Because like you just said, they can get to the free throw line and make 29 free throws, but then they also make 11 threes. And when you can dominate the interior, and you have guys that can make shots on the outside, and you have tough, hard-nosed bigs that can beat it up on the glass, but they can also step out and make shots, it makes for a great season. And then guys like a Kylan Boswell. Every great team needs a Kylan Boswell, because he can get you 18 against a Tennessee and win you the game. But get on the road at Ohio State, struggles offensively, but still has his imprints all over the game defensively, sharing the basketball, being a leader. With this team, when they play at that Brad Underwood level toughness, there's no team in the country that I could see running this team off the floor.
I don't know that Boswell would win the Big Ten Player of the Year, but if they give an MVP, a most valuable guy, that dude does a little bit of everything for the orange and blue. A really high-scoring team, by the way. Illinois, only 1 game they haven't scored 75. Quick thought on Ohio State. Bruce Thornton continues to show he's an absolute scoring threat with 34 points, 24 coming in the first half.
Yeah, it was exactly what you think of Ohio State. Bruce Thornton's going crazy. He gives you 34, just all over the floor, from 3, from the mid-range, getting to the free throw line. But for me, it's about everybody else, because Bruce Thornton, he can't have this load on his shoulders every single night. He almost carried them home. You think about it, Ohio State puts up 80 points at home. That should be enough to win. But the defense has got to pick up. Guys have got to defend at a higher level. And you look at the rest of the squad outside of Bruce Thornton, because Bruce was great, 13 for 17 from the field. But everyone else, a combined 34% from the field and 3 for 19 from the three-point line. And then when you look at it, Devin Royal, only 3 rebounds. John Mobley Jr., only 1 assist. Those guys have got to find other ways to affect ball games when the shots start dropping from deep. The defense wasn't there last night. The toughness wasn't there last night. Shout out to Bruce Thornton. But if I'm in that locker room, I'm looking around at my guys, and I'm saying, I need you, especially those veterans, especially those guys that's been around the program for a while. They can't have no shows in the effort category. It's okay if you don't shoot it well, but you got to show up and you got to play hard.
couple non-conference opponents immediately on the schedule for the Buckeyes. They got West Virginia, then North Carolina, their next 2 games. The individual story of the night might have been Bruce Thornton, but instead, Lamar Wilkerson said, I'll have something to say about that.
Hold my
beer. He dropped 44. He scored 44. That was the most points a Hoosier has scored since the 1970s. What was he doing?
Everything. He was knocking down threes. He was getting into the lane. And that's what I love about Lamar Wilkerson. He's a shooter, but he's a tough shooter because normally you see a guy, he make 10, 11 threes. You may think they're a little softer. They're not getting into that lane. They're not getting to the free throw line. But Lamar Wilkerson will give you a little bit of everything. And what's so impressive about it, 44 points, 10 to 15 from the three-point line, in 24 minutes played. It's just ridiculous the way they were going to him. And that's also what I love because Indiana, they felt the hot hand. And when you have a teammate that's hot like that, there's times in games where other guys want to get hot. But Indiana, they were feeding a hot hand. 30 assists on their 42 made field goals. That is good basketball. And outside of Lamar Wilkerson, I know he was great. He was special, and he needed that game because coming into last night, he was 5 of his last 23 from the three-point line. So he needed to get going, but the other guys needed to get going. Indiana put up 113 points on Penn State. Tucker DeVries only had 12. And that's a good sign because Reed Bailey gave him 18. Trent Sicily off the bench gave him 8 rebounds. Connor Enright gave him 8 assists, one of his better offensive games of the season, in my opinion. And then Connerway gets going. He gives him 17.7 assists. A couple guys off the bench come make some shots. That's what you need if you're Indiana. You're coming off some games where you struggle. Other guys didn't feel good about themselves. You needed this game to get those other guys to feel good because this cannot be just the Lamar Wilkerson, Tucker DeVries show. You need those other guys to contribute.
I think the Indiana fan base is smart and savvy, and more than anything, they want a winner. They don't care the style of play.
Yep.
But how fun for them. They have this high-flying offense now. This is the 4th time the Hoosiers have scored 100 points this season.
It's crazy. And it just shows you their firepower. It shows you how coach wants to play. They want to move the basketball. They want to get up and down. Last night, they were able to use their defense to fuel their offense, forced 14 turnovers, got out on the breaks, turned them into 20-plus points. That's going to be Indiana basketball this season. It's going to be making a bunch of threes. It's going to be getting out in transition. It's going to be finding opportunities on the offensive glass. But they've got to bring their hard hat. The game at Minnesota, the game at Indianapolis against Louisville, they left their hard hat at home. Last night they had it against Penn State. Their offense was great, but the defense was better. And I think that's what Coach DeVries could be happy about in the locker room.
Turn our attention to Michigan. Really disappointing. They only win by 28. I mean, it's just they're really going downhill at this point.
Man.
They are unstoppable right now.
They are. And then you think about Michigan right now, they didn't shoot the ball well from 3. They go 27% from the three-point line, and they still beat you by 30 because they're just a great team, and that's what great teams do. They find ways to win games outside of just making shots. We know what Michigan can do to you offensively. We know they have individual players that can go for 30 on any given night, and Yaxel Lindenberg and Elliot Cadeau and those guys, but they have this level of toughness that great teams don't normally have. I personally think Michigan could be one of the best defensive teams ever in college basketball. All 10 guys can guard, not just the 5 on the floor. They have no second unit when it comes to the defensive end. LJ Casey can guard. Trey McKinney, a freshman, can guard. Yaxel Lindenberg with 4 steals last night against Nova. Just a big-time defensive end. They could play man-to-man. They can switch man-to-man. They can guard you on a hedge on the ball screen. They can play drop coverage on the ball screen. They throw that 2-3 zone out at you. They can play a 3-2 zone. They go a full court press. They just make you uncomfortable as an offensive team. And then they understand they are so deep that if you don't play hard, you are coming out of the game. It doesn't matter about your offense. And that's why I really love this Michigan team because they're plus 20 on the glass, 15 offensive rebounds, and they have 21 points off turnovers. Yeah. They win those play hard categories to go along with what they can do to you on the offensive end.
Your depth point is so right there. 8 players scored 7 points or more in this game. And it's wild how they just own this from the front. In the first half, they had an 18-3 run. Then they had a 15-0 run.
That's crazy, man.
And they ended the half scoring 12 straight.
That's unbelievable.
3 ridiculous runs in one half of basketball. And they've now had 6 wins by 25 points or more, 6 wins in a row. by 25 points.
Against good teams.
It's a couple ranked teams in there. Last thought, USC take down San Diego. A couple individual players had really big games.
Yeah, Chad Baker-Mazara has been on the heater this season. We know he's averaging over 20 points a game on really high percentages from the field and the three-point line. But last night he got going. 15 points in the first half, 16 points in the second half, and he gave it every which way. He was getting downhill, shot 10 free throws, goes 5 from 6 from the three-point line. He is going to be that focal piece for the USC Trojans. But it was a tie game at halftime, and Chad Baker-Mazara had it going. But no one else had it going with him. And in that second half, Ezra Ausar just took over the game. 22 of his 29 points coming after the break, controlled the paint. That's what you need every night. Ezra Ausar, especially with with Rice out right now, Rodney Rice with the injury, you need Ausar to be there for a full game. If you get him for a full 40 minutes, you know what Chad can do, and then you take care of the basketball. USC, you go to San Diego, 13 turnovers in the first half. You're able to stay in that game. But there's nowhere you can go in the Big Ten to have 13 turnovers in the half and expect to win that game. That's got to get taken care of. I think Rodney Rice fixes that issue. Yeah. But those two, they were spectacular last night.
Nice for them to get Jaden Brownell off the bench, too, hitting 4 3-pointers, providing 16 points for USC. And so a look at the college football playoff. Once again, you've seen it all by now. Indiana's the 1 seed, Ohio State the 2, and Oregon makes it 3 Big Ten teams in the top 5 seeds overall. Oregon will play in the first round at Autzen Stadium against James Madison, while the Hoosiers and Buckeyes are waiting for their next opponent. We bring in Gerry DiNardo now to talk about everything in the world of Big Ten football. And Gerry, I want to save some time at the end to talk about the selection committee because I know you're a big fan. But I want to start off by talking about these Big Ten teams. And the more I sit back and think about this, Gerry, what Curt Cignetti has done at Indiana, it's one of the more outrageous stories in college sports ever, not just college football. They won 9 games combined in the 3 years before him. Now they've won 24 in 2 years, and they're not done playing. How'd this happen?
It's extraordinary, and give Scott Dolson, the AD, all kinds of credit for this. And, you know, we've told the story 100 times, and a lot of people have heard it when Coach Cignetti came to the Big Ten champ game, not this past one, he was in it, the one before, when he first got on and said, I wanted to come and see it because I was going to be in this game at the end of the year. And it's a great story, and I'm thinking to myself, this could cost Scott Dolson his job. I mean, what is he thinking? But it is a tremendous story. And I also say this, Mike, regardless of what his path has been, and his path is a little bit different because he was a head coach at some of the smaller schools before he took the Indiana job. My contention is if he had taken a job as an assistant at Alabama and gone somewhere, he'd still been a great head coach. His dad was a great head coach. It's just an incredible story, and it's still going. The story is still being made.
Right. Well, speaking of media days, what did you make at media days this year? Like the headline he made then was like, "We're changing our schedule. We're going to an SEC non-conference schedule."
Okay, now, obviously I have history at Indiana. You know, this is something that Indiana has never done. And where they fit in the conference, it seemed reasonable that you would do something. Kennesaw State, ODU, and Indiana State. And when he was asked about that at media days, his answer was great. Well, we're just adapting the SEC philosophy of non-conference schedule. And so, again, this is a partnership between Scott Dolson and Coach Cignetti. This isn't just Coach Cignetti, because that non-conference schedule was the perfect schedule for them to get on this run that they've been on.
It's just this amazing run. They're now waiting for Oklahoma and Alabama to play, and the winner will take on the Hoosiers. Of course, Indiana is the #1 seed. They're the ranked #1 team for the first time in the history of Indiana football. And the reason why is they just beat Ohio State in the Big Ten championship in the last game. What level of concern is there for Ohio State? Is there stuff they feel they have to fix that they learned from that game in Indianapolis?
Yeah, there's no doubt, but they didn't learn in Indianapolis. It was just reinforced in Indianapolis. They have had trouble with short yardage goal line, red zone. They've had some trouble with the run game in general, but especially in those situations, and they had the same problems in the champ game. Now, Ryan Day, when asked, I don't really know what the question was, but his answer was, We're going to spend time solving our problems. And I think this is true. When a team has a goal before the goal to win the game, it's a great motivator. In other words, it's a long season, right? So what motivates the Ohio State team? They know they're not a complete team. They know what they have to do before they play in the playoff system, right? So I think it'll be a highly motivated team. Brian Hartline is leaving. I was in the same exact position. I was the offensive coordinator. Our team was playing for a national championship, and I had taken a head coaching job. And as much as I tried to do both, I have to tell you, it's almost impossible not to be thinking about the head coaching job more than the coordinator's job. And so this will be a challenge for the staff at Ohio State. But again, I think the great thing about this game is there's a goal to get better before you play that game, and I think that's a great motivator.
I mean, I got to be honest here. When I hear you say some of this stuff, I'm thinking, how incomplete are they? They were number one almost the entire season. Their only loss came in an added game to the number one team in the country by 3 points. When their own kicker missed a kick he's almost always going to make, it doesn't feel like that much is broken.
No, but Mike, I mean, this is national championship, right? I mean, the teams they're playing, in theory, are the best teams, obviously, in the country. So they're not broken, but let's be clear. They need a better run game. Now, earlier in the year, I was saying that they didn't really need a better run game because what I was thinking was their pass offense was so explosive, more explosive than any other pass offenses, and they could get away without having a good short yardage plan, not a good short yardage plan, a good short yardage production, a good goal line production. But as it turns out, they're not a total complete team until the run game gets better and the situations where you need the run game gets better.
I want to turn to Oregon because when you and I chatted yesterday, you said something I thought was really interesting. The Ducks might have a better path than the teams who have earned a bye. How come?
I don't think there's any question. I think Oregon's got the best schedule. Well, for a couple of reasons. First of all, if you look at Indiana, right, I want to say that before they played Purdue, after they played Wisconsin, they had a bye and then they played Purdue. And I think the stat is this, that they are going to play 2 games since the Wisconsin game until they start playing in the Rose Bowl. 47 days, and they've only played 2 games. That is a tough schedule to manage. And so what I like about the Oregon game, first of all, the Oregon people should really be happy with the CFP committee. No one else is happy, but Oregon must be happy because they gave them James Madison as a first game to close the gap between their last game and their first big-time game in the playoffs. So I think the fact that they're playing someone that they have better players than, it's not even close, and the only reason they're playing him is because this CFP is not the best 12 teams playing for the national championship. It's almost the best 12 teams. BYU should be in it, Notre Dame should be in it, but because automatic qualifiers are part of it, this is a windfall for Oregon to be playing James Madison before they play the next game, and the next game's Texas Tech, and that's a tough game.
See, I had a follow-up to Oregon, but you went right to the committee. I feel helpless. I'm like Donger and 16 Candles. You led me there. Let's go there. Give me your main issues with the selection committee. What are the 1 or 2 things at the very top of your head that you're like, I really think we have to fix this going forward?
Okay, first of all, I think it should be the best 12 teams, or whatever the number is, the best 12 teams, no automatic qualifiers. I think the people that are managing the rankings are very successful people. That means they're very busy people, and they don't have time to study the tape. What I see as a solution is to hire a group. I don't know what the number is, 10, 12 people, pay them $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year. It's their full-time job. They have to be football experts. And when you and I talked yesterday, you're not really an eye test guy, so if there's other things other than watching the tape that can help pick the top 12 teams without automatic qualifiers, now we have a real national championship setup. Because right now, with BYU and Notre Dame out of it, James Madison in it, and Tulane in it, there's no way the best 12 teams are competing for the national championship. For Notre Dame, it's almost like go to the Pop-Tarts Bowl, right? And yet James Madison can play and Tulane can play for these major bowls. And so that's my biggest complaint.
How big a deal is it that the 11th and 12th best teams aren't in? I mean, I think back to the BCS, there was huge cries about, well, the number 3 team is left out. And then we did the 4 team. It was like, yeah, but if Florida State is being left out and they deserve in. Is it really that problematic that a BYU or a Notre Dame is left out?
Yeah, it is, because BYU and Notre Dame have competed all year to play for the national championship. So to all of a sudden be the 11th and 12th best team in the country and say to the 2 teams, oh, by the way, even though you're 11th best and 12th best, we're going to put these other 2 teams in because they're automatic qualifiers. So it's not a big deal, Mike, unless you're one of those 2 teams.
Right.
Then it is a big deal.
Right. I guess my point is,
you've taken away a chance to play for a national championship to people that should be in the field of 12.
Yeah. I don't disagree with all of that. I mean, to me, if an undefeated Florida State or an Auburn gets left out, I feel like, boy, that's really hard. But if a team lost multiple times and they don't get the last slot in, it doesn't break my heart. Now, that being said, I don't think it can't be improved. I think it certainly can be improved. I guess my next thing would be you and I might disagree on the concept of best, right? To me, you might think a team is better than Howard Griffith, another perfectly valid, intelligent football person. And if we're just going on the age-old eye test thing, well, neither of you are wrong. It's totally subjective. But if we don't do that criteria, if we just say who has proved it based on who they played, where they played, how they played, to me, it has to be paramount, and it can't just be a subjective, I watch tape, I think they're better.
Mike, okay, I would agree with you. I don't know the other part of the world, right? You know the other things other than the eye test. And if they should be included, include them. I'm not saying just watch the tape. I'm saying hire people that it's their job and pay them this is a billion-dollar business run by volunteers. I don't know where that happens anywhere else in our country. And so if you want to make other parts of it an issue other than watching the tape, I don't have a problem with that. Yeah. Get a group together and let them, year-round job. How important is this thing? It's pretty important. And yet, all these very, very successful people on the committee, when they get back to their jobs on Monday, they're not thinking about who's the best team and so on and so forth. That's part of my argument.
I get you. To be clear, should I be on your committee?
I'd have another committee for you, actually, and
Time for the Big Stat presented by Gatorade, and it is all about Nebraska. They are ranked in the AP poll, the highest they've been in more than a decade. Undefeated, 9-0, something they've only ever done twice previously. And tonight, if they win, it would tie the program record for starts to the season, dating back to the late 70s. I think some people thought there'd be potential with Nebraska, but in general, it feels like this is a surprise. So we're going to make this segment Rayfel's biggest surprises at this point in the season. And how surprising is Nebraska's 9-0 start to you?
I mean, it's extremely surprising in my opinion, because think back a couple of seasons ago, Coach Hoiberg was up against it. He didn't know how much time he would have in Lincoln, and he went to the drawing board and said, I'm going to do this my way. I'm going to bring in guys that want to compete for Nebraska, that want to play for the front of the jersey, not the back of the jersey, and it has worked out in a big way. But this season has been big time, and it's only big time because the addition of Rink Mass. Rink Mass coming back this season off of that injury. We just did not know this offseason. We didn't know how that lower leg injury affected his game, affected his ability on the offensive end. But Rink has been big time, averaging over 18 points a game, doing it on the outside and the inside. It starts with Rink Mass, especially in Coach Hoiberg's system, knowing he likes to play through that point forward at the top of the key. And then we just didn't know. We didn't know about Price Sanford. We didn't know if Price could come in from Iowa and be a certified number 2 option on the offensive end. And he has done just that. And then I'm saying it, I sound like a broken record, but we didn't know if Sam Hoiberg was a starting Big Ten point guard. And boy, is he. Sam Hoiberg sets the tone for this team on a defensive end. He shares the ball offensively. He gets everyone going. He's the coach on the floor. When you have 3 stables in the system, you throw in an athlete like a Jamarcus Lawrence, you have some bench production from the freshmen that they've brought in, it makes for a really sound basketball club. Tonight is going to be a big one against Wisconsin, but I love where Nebraska is.
They've now won 13 straight games. If you go back to where they ended the season last year. And they're beating bigger. They beat Oklahoma, Creighton, Kansas State. It's been a great start to the season for them. And while they've been great, nobody's been more incredible than Michigan. We talked about them earlier in the show. Again, I think you thought they would be good. But this good?
No. I mean, I think, like you said, we all knew they would be good. We know Dusty May is one of the better coaches in college basketball. But I'm impressed at how they bought in so quickly and how they gelled so fast together. You look at Michigan right now. It's as if this team has been playing together for 3 or 4 years, and they all came into Michigan together, the way they get along, the way they're bonded together, the way they do their post-game interviews all in the huddle, cheering each other on. This is big time because when you have such a new team, you're finding roles. Guys are trying to develop in who they want to be. Morez Johnson coming into Illinois, he wants to prove he can play that 4 position. Ade Mara didn't get a chance at UCLA to show his complete game. And then we know Yaxel Lindenberg's story getting to this point. Those 3 guys could have came into Michigan and played selfish basketball. They could have said, this is my time to shine. But when you have 7, 8, 9 guys all buying in, including the best players on your team, it makes for a special season. I knew they'd be good. I knew they'd be talented. But I didn't know they'd be this close and this gel together this early.
Lead the league in scoring. Lead the league in rebounding. I mean, is there a weakness? Maybe their 3-point shooting isn't as good as it could be.
But Michigan State won the league last season by 3 games, and we're the worst 3-point shooting team in the conference.
That's
so
true.
It's one of those things where Michigan has it going. Injury isn't a problem. If you think about their depth, there's some good things going on in Ann Arbor.
Speaking of Michigan State, how surprising is their start to the year?
I'm shocked. I will say I'm shocked. And I'm not saying I doubted the Michigan State Tom Izzo squad. Like we said, we just didn't know. We didn't know how Michigan State would score the basketball in the half court, and they have figured it out. I mean, behind the back of Jeremy Fears, he has been sensational this season. Jeremy Fears is playing like a first-team All-American, playing like the best point guard in college basketball, leading the country in assists, sharing the sugar, finding teammates, being the pest on the defensive end, just a pure antagonizer that after the game, he may rough you up a little bit. You bring in freshmen in Ken Ward and Jordan Scott. Their development has been big time coming throughout the season. But the development in Michigan State that I don't know if anyone was ready for is Jackson Kohler and Carson Cooper. They make up one of the best front courts in the country. Jackson Kohler is playing like an all-conference caliber player, giving them almost a double-double every single night. And then Carson Cooper, he's playing like he has a chance to play at the next level. His game against Duke was big time. 16 points, 16 rebounds. You add that in what Cohen Carr can do. With Michigan State, they're going to fight you. They're going to run. They're going to defend you. Michigan State has it going. I like them in any matchup this season.
You know what you said that stands out to me the most? They're going to defend you. Mm-hmm. They are hard to score
It's that vintage Michigan State, hard-nosed, pick you up 94 feet. They don't care if they score the ball. They want to lift to play defense. When I first came into the Big Ten Network, I started working in studio. Michigan State was soft. That was not a Tom Izzo character squad. Behind Jeremy Fears, they've brought back all of that Michigan State toughness. If you don't guard, you're coming out. If you don't fight, you're coming out. If you don't hit the glass, you're sitting next to Coach Izzo. All of those guys understand it. All of those guys have bought in. And then when you have a leader like a Jeremy Fears, it takes you a long, long way in college hoops.
Fears has thrown out 8 assists or more 8 of the 10 games.
That's nuts.
They've played so far this year. The goal, it felt like coming into the year, was for every team to try to be good enough to be what the Purdue Boilermakers are. And Purdue was undefeated to start the year. But nobody's going to go undefeated all the way. It sure seems like it's been since the 1970s with Indiana that we actually saw it. And they picked up their first loss. But the loss itself to a good team, but was very unexpected.
Yeah, it just doesn't happen in Mackey Arena. Purdue hasn't gotten beaten like that in Mackey Arena since I played. And that's the thing where you have to find a way to bounce back. I was shocked that they just took it on the chin the way that they did, especially in that second half. And the thing that shocked me the most was the effort and the toughness and the big 3, the leaders, the veteran, just not showing up. You look at Trey Kaufman-Wren, you look at Fletcher Lawyer, 2 mainstays in the Purdue system, 2 of the best players in this conference. They can't play a game this season again where they go 3 for 16 from the field and expect to win that game. Those two guys have got to show up every single night. Braden Smith is one of the best point guards to ever put on a college basketball uniform, one of the best point guards we've seen in the Big Ten. You can't have 6 turnovers in your home gym playing against a great team and expect to win that game. I was shocked that those 3 did not come to play in that one. I'm fascinated to see how that big 3 responds in this one. You can't put it on the guys coming off the bench. You can't put it on a C.J. Cox or Oscar Clough. When you look at Purdue this season, with the expectations they have, with what they want to get done this season, when you think about winning the Big Ten championship, win the Big Ten tournament, get to a Final Four, win the national championship, those 3 at the top, those 3 seniors, they've got to come to play every single night on both ends because Iowa State destroyed Purdue offensively in that second half. Those dudes didn't show up.
23-point home loss for the Boilermakers. And a lot of little things. They couldn't hit a 3.
Nope.
They missed more free throws than they made in that game. That was not a Matt Painter.
And then for me, it bled into their defense because, yeah, you don't make shots. You don't make your free throws. But you have to guard. One thing Coach Painter would always say, who are you is when the shots don't go in. That's who you are. Purdue in that second half, the shots weren't going in, and they wilted. They quit defensively, and that can't happen.
Last surprise that you have on your radar is the start to the season for the Washington Huskies. How come?
Hannes Steinbach. Hannes Steinbach has been big time. His first 2 Big Ten games, the Big Ten openers, as a freshman, averaging 27 points, 13 rebounds on 75% from the field. When you have a big man that you can throw the ball into down low, that can get the ball off an offensive rebound and put it back, it gives you a pressure release. It gives you an answer offensively to go along with what Wesley Yates can do on the perimeter. We know Wesley Yates is a bucket. He can get downhill. He can make open shots. Wesley Yates is a problem. And now Desmond Claude is starting to play a little bit better. That USC game, I think, turned the corner for Desmond Claude. And if you get the Desmond Claude that we knew him to be last season for the Trojans, I think Washington could be in that mix to maybe even get a double bye in the Big Ten. You start the Big Ten season off 1-1. Hines is going. Claus gets going. Wesley Yates is a big-time scorer. Now you need everyone else to do their job. Everyone else has to play hard. Everyone else has to defend at a high level. And then you live with your big 3, and then you live with the results.
Yeah, they do have 3 losses. They started off with a loss in conference play to UCLA. Yeah. But remember in that game, they were up 16 points with just a few minutes left. So it's not like they had that victory within their grasp.
Yeah, and those are the games you have to win, and those are the games where Desmond Claude has to get back into shape. And Desmond Claude, at the end of that USC game, that was the Desmond Claude I was used to. Take over the basketball game, win your team a game, but then offensively as a team, even going back to that UCLA game, they started fighting the game. And when you have a player like Steinbach down low, throw the ball inside as much as you can. I can remember playing for Coach Painter, and we had A.J. Hammonds, and we had Isaac Haas, and even Caleb Swanigan. And Coach Painter would chart our post feeds. You throw the ball in the post, you get a check. You get 2 feet in the paint, you get a check. And I think Washington has to go about it that way. We know their guards can really, really play, but you have a stud in Steinbach down low. Give him the ball a little bit early, let him loosen it up, and then those guards can cook on the perimeter. That's what I think won them that USC game, and I think that's going to continue to win the games.
From the surprises that Raphael has to the games coming up this evening, we're going to preview that with my man in just a little bit. It is one of the weirder things about the Big Ten. The 90s were so good to the league in terms of producing Heisman Trophy winners, but since the turn of the century, just one. Troy Smith in 2006 is the only Big Ten player to win the most valued individual prize in college sports, but that might be coming to an end soon. Gerry DiNardo joins us as we look ahead towards Saturday evening when they will announce the winner of the Heisman Trophy. 4 finalists have been announced. 2 are from the Big Ten, Fernando Mendoza and Julian Sayin. And Gerry, I know you can't reveal who you voted for, but the general vibe seems to be that the Big Ten is going to pick up this trophy, whether it's Mendoza or Sayin.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And these are 2 drastically different quarterbacks in my opinion. You know, Fernando is a major part of a major story in college football. So he's probably had more eyeballs on him than anyone who's ever played at Indiana in the history of the sport. He had a great comeback 2-minute drill against Penn State. That was as good a 2-minute drill and as tough a 2-minute drill as I've ever seen. He does have a difference as far as a quarterback. He's tougher than most quarterbacks. He's taken more hits in his face as he gets ready to throw the ball. In the championship game against Ohio State last Saturday night, the first play of the game, he gets knocked down, and it didn't look like he was going to get up. And sure enough, he got up, he went back to the sideline, and then he came into the game. But the interesting thing about that, Mike, is when he sat on the desk after the game with us, he expressed how hurt he really was. And this happens to a lot of players in this game. You get hurt, but when you go to the sidelines, you're not really honest with the medical staff, and you play the game. But it's unusual that a quarterback would do that, a quarterback that took a hit like he took. So that's how I see Fernando. I would say that my guess is he's the leader in the clubhouse right now from what everybody's saying.
And to your point, a quarterback in Mendoza, who some are saying will be the #1 overall pick, a guy who's got a bright future ahead of him as well. It might be him. It might be saying his numbers are incredible. The completion percentage just outrageous on this season. It won't be Jeremiah Smith, though, the Ohio State wide receiver who, Jerry, I think there's a handful of people who would say that guy might be the most talented guy in the league, even though he's not a Heisman finalist.
Yeah, you know, he is an incredible talent. And if he would have the same amount of opportunities with the ball that a quarterback has, he certainly would be in it. You know, there's a couple sidebars to the three people that we're talking about, Mike. First of all, the two quarterbacks are portal quarterbacks. And for those people that don't like the portal, for those people that think the portal is ruining college football, it's actually just the opposite. It's made college football better. The thing that bothers me about Jeremiah Smith, and this goes back to Jadeveon Clowney for me when he was at South Carolina, he is physically ready to play in the NFL. But for some reason, we have a rule, and I think the rule was originally formed for this reason, that in football, you needed more years to mature. Unlike basketball, they've been able to leave after freshman year and so on and so forth. It's time to revisit that. Jeremiah Smith is physically ready to be in the NFL. And the amount of future earnings that he could lose if he ever got hurt in a game next year and not be in the NFL, I think that needs to change, because physically, there are people nowadays that are ready before their third year in college. But three great players in the Big Ten. But my guess is Fernando is probably the one that most people think the trophy will land with.
Yeah, and to your point, Smith, were he eligible, could be a #1 pick right away as well for the NFL draft. There's a bunch of postseason awards that are handed out. It's not just the Heisman Trophy. There's, Linebacker of the Year, the Butkus Award, and all sorts of other things. But the Joe Moore Award is a trophy that hasn't been around for that long. It wasn't around in the 30s like the Heisman Trophy, but it's very quickly gained a lot of esteem, and people start talking about the value of this award given to the best offensive line in the country. Explain to me the background of how this started.
Yeah, Aaron Taylor, who was an All-American player at Notre Dame and a great pro player for, I think, the Chargers, he started this years ago. It's been since we started the network, and I was on the original committee with him, and I used to watch the tape like a lot of these people do that decide the best offensive line in the country. It just seemed like there was enough people interested in having this trophy formed after Joe Moore, who was considered a great offensive line coach, University of Pittsburgh. He was at Notre Dame, I think, was his last job, and people felt like he was one of the better, or maybe the best offensive line. Kirk Ferentz talks about him quite a bit. And so you have this group of people, and this also forms my opinion about the CFP. You have this group of people that are expert in offensive line, and they watch offensive line play and they grade it, and they would make you think that what makes the world goes around is offensive line play. That's how invested this group is, the amount of hours they spend. And I think that's the same thing we need with the CFP, right? And so that's kind of the history of it. But never has three teams from one conference been to 3 finalists. And if you look at one of the finalists, Indiana, remember Curt Cignetti said after last year, against the big boys, we weren't good enough. Well, he brought in, I want to say, 7 defensive and offensive linemen combined. And typical of Cignetti, right? He doesn't just bring in some offensive linemen. He brings in some offensive line that win or in the competition to win the Joe Moore Award. And so, again, Cignetti never disappoints. And Bob Bostad is the offensive line coach at Indiana, and he was the only coach that Coach Sig kept from the previous staff. So, again, a lot of things crossing here, and it just seems like for certain things, Coach Cignetti's right in the middle of them.
Yeah, it makes sense. You know, he felt like they were not able to compete with the bigs, and now they are, and the proof is in the pudding as they're a finalist for it. What does it say to you? You touched on this briefly, but what does it say to you that Iowa, Indiana, and Oregon, all Big Ten teams, are considered the 3 best offensive lines in the country?
Well, you know, there's always conversations about the physical teams, who's the most physical and this and that. Again, Aaron said there's never been 3 teams in one conference to be the 3 finalists. So I think perhaps it's obvious that of all the conferences right now, the line play in the Big Ten is maybe better than it is everywhere else. And, we're going back a lot of years when the offenses in the Big Ten weren't all that explosive. Mm-hmm. Now we could say that they're explosive and maybe the most physical line of scrimmage in the country.
And it probably says something, too, that 2 of those finalists are among the 5 highest-ranked teams as we head in
right.
to the college football playoff. Gerry DiNardo, great chatting with you, man. Thanks, bud.
See you, Mike.
Sitting at home thinking, boy, I'd like to watch some Big Ten basketball this evening. Guess what? We got you covered. It's a doubleheader of action. We got Minnesota taking on the top 10 ranked Boilermakers. And following that, it'll be Wisconsin against the now ranked and still undefeated on the year Nebraska Cornhuskers. 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 o'clock Central Time is when the first game tips off. So let's preview those matchups right now. We'll start with Minnesota and Purdue. I think it's going to be interesting very early on to see what we're seeing from Purdue. We talked earlier in the show about how they not only lost their last game, they lost at home by 23 points with a lot of things wrong. Does it feel like they're motivated right off the bat, or maybe they still reeling from that loss when the game starts?
If this is the Coach Painter that I play for, that I know so well, they are going to be unbelievably motivated for this one. Because one thing Coach Painter would always say, and this team maybe not experienced it. Maybe you go back to the Final Four of the national championship game, they get blown out of UConn. But this senior group, they've been through everything, but they've never been blown out in Mackey. And Coach Painter would always tell us, champions get off the canvas. So you're going to see early on in this one if Purdue got off the canvas. And I'm not watching the offensive end. I'm watching on the defensive end. I want to see them locked in. I want to see them help the helper. I want to see them rebound at a high level, because what Iowa State did offensively to Purdue in the second half of that game on Saturday, I hadn't seen it in a long time, putting up 46 points on 60% from the field. I want to see Purdue respond on the defensive end, and they got to get the crowd into it early. Give the fans something to cheer about after they watch you stink up the gym the other day.
And Minnesota's been inconsistent in the first year with Nico Medved, but they also just beat a ranked Indiana team, so they can do some damage to a team.
Yeah, and they're feeling confident. They're feeling confident. They have complete buy-in to Coach Medved's system now, because when you win a game like that and you follow Coach's scouting report to a T and you come away with success, now everyone is bought in. Now you have to go on the road and carry that defense with you. Offense sometimes doesn't travel, but defense, it gets in that suitcase with you. And Langston Reynolds, one of the best defensive players that you have in the Big Ten, that matchup between him, Fletcher Loyer, is going to be fascinating, but Minnesota's got to carry that toughness that they had against the Hoosiers and try to take Purdue out of it defensively. And then when it gets loud in Mackey, it's going to get loud in Mackey. Move the basketball. Don't take bad shots.
The late game is Wisconsin at Nebraska. What are you more interested in, seeing the big man battle or seeing if John Blackwell can score 50?
John Blackwell going for 50. I want to see John Blackwell going for 50. And Sam Hoiberg, Jamarcus Lawrence, they're going to have their hands full dealing with John Blackwell, because he can get you offensively downhill into the lane. He's a great cutter off the basketball. He's going to knock down his free throws. Really good breaking down the defense with the ball in his hands. And then this season, he's shooting over 43% from the three-point line. So John Blackwell is a pest offensively, a load defensively. So I'm looking at that matchup. But then when I look at Nebraska, Rink Mask, you look at Wisconsin, Nolan Winter, that's going to be the game. Can Nolan Winter, can he guard Rienk Mast? And can on the vice versa, can Rienk Mast, can he check Nolan?
Yeah, Blackwell has scored 25 or more back-to-back
That's
games,
crazy.
including that last one. Remember, they just beat their in-state rival Marquette. Beat them badly. It was a 20-point victory for them. That'll do it for us. For Gerry and Rafael, I'm Mike. Thanks for watching. We'll see you here next time.